it's still such a shock to hear, especially at only just turning 24, that you've got breast cancer. I just kind of remember my surgeon saying, "I'm sorry to tell you, there is cancer being found in the cells and in the biopsy." I remember saying to my mum, "Am I going to lose my hair?" And then thinking, of course, I don't want to die. Yeah, I just remember we just both burst into tears.
Ring out, ring this bell 3 times well. It's told to clearly say, my treatment's done, this course is run, and I am on my way.
In October, I turned 25, and I came to the University of Worcester to do English literature at my undergraduate degree, and I fell in love with the place, so I stayed in Worcester, and I carried on to do my English masters. So I carried on to do that, and I actually graduated the month after I was diagnosed. I largely loved going out exploring, going on for walks, new places, with my boyfriend. We just loved exploring the surrounding areas and going for days out places. And my mum was diagnosed in 2019 for a second time with breast cancer, and it's then when she found out she had the BRCA1 gene, and knowing that it can be inherited 50-50 chance, I thought, I want to know straight away whether I've got it. So I think it was actually 2020, I had the blood test in December, and January 2021, I found out, I received the results. I had inherited the BRCA1 gene. I hadn't started any scans yet. Because I was only 23 when I found out. So I just had the blood test, and I'd had a call with genetics counsellor and a breast nurse. And the only thing was obviously tell me things, how to, with my lifestyle, exercise, keep an eye out. I was on the combined contraceptive pill, and they just warned me to come off that and change to the mini pill instead. So until I turned 25, it was just be aware of myself and just monthly checks. But I think it was around 2021, July, maybe time, August, I started to feel a bit of a lump. But it went and it kept coming back, and I thought, is it because I've now started doing more things at the gym, such as lifting? Is it something to do with that? So I was keeping an eye on it. I noticed something at the other side as well, that kept coming and going as well. So that happened for around 2-3 months. Didn't really think too much anything of it. It was just a lump, slight pain, but not too much. It didn't really feel like what a typical cancer lump feels like. But it wasn't until I think around September, it had been there a bit longer than usual, the lump. And I said to my boyfriend, do you mind just feeling it? And normally I'll just keep an eye on it, it's fine. But he said, no, Lucy, that doesn't feel like it. You should tell your mum, get your mum to feel it and get it checked at the doctor. So with him saying that, I thought, hang on, something is not right. The next day I got my mum to check it, and we thought, well, it doesn't feel like a cancerous lump, but obviously being high risk, having 60 to 90% higher chance of getting breast cancer, I thought I need to ring the doctors. And yeah, the next day I rang the doctors. So obviously it was of with the doctors, that they were still doing a lot of telephone appointments. So I called. When I called, I said, obviously, can I have an appointment with the doctors? And they said, well, it's only telephone appointments. And I was like, I found a lump. I need to see them. And she was like, oh, okay, well, we can do it in whatever time. And I was like, and I made sure to tell them I am high risk. I have got the BRCA gene. So she said, okay, yes, you need to be seen. And she got me in for a few days later. So I managed to see a doctor and she checked it over. She didn't think it was anything. She just thought it was fibrous tissue as well. Didn't think it felt like a cancer tumor. But obviously you can't be too careful and being high risk. They sent in a request for me at the hospital at the breast unit just to have a scan and be checked over. And that came within 2 weeks. And then I went to the breast unit, was checked over by the nurse initially, and she obviously thought it was fibrous tissue, but I still had a scan. And then he didn't think it was anything, an ultrasound. He didn't think it was anything to be worried about. On a scale of, I think he said 1 to 5, he measured my scan at number 3, which is slightly abnormal, but nothing unusual and to be too worried about. But they did say, because I'm BRCA1, they will take a biopsy. And luckily they did, thank God they did take a biopsy. Yes, so they told me, I think it was 7 to 10 days, I would get the results back. I got a call from the nurse saying, can you come in on the 13th? The surgeon wants to speak to you. And of course, you hear, hang on, it's supposed to be the nurse that was speaking to me to give me my results. It's now the surgeon. It can't be good news. But of course, you do whatever you can. You just hope there's that slight bit of hope. Oh, maybe he just wants to, it is fibrous tissue, but he just wants to talk about getting it removed, surgically removed. But yes, 3 days after my 24th birthday, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, I wasn't really trying to, it was promising. I was trying to think, well, multiple medical professionals have thought, like 3 medical professionals have thought, my mum, because I didn't feel my mum's cancer lump when she had hers, so I couldn't really compare. I was trying not to get my hopes up that, oh, it is, but of course you've got that slight bit of hope. But yeah, until I had the results, I was trying not to think too much of it. But I think I had this feeling, especially since I had the call from the nurse saying the surgeon wants to see you, especially since that, I had this feeling it's cancer. Why else would he want? But so it's a scary thought because I kind of want to hope that they would have done a biopsy anyway, but I have known people that they haven't done biopsy from, and luckily it's not been cancer. But then you also do hear some horror stories of people that just kind of get a bit fobbed off saying, oh, you're too young for it to be cancer, or it doesn't feel like it. And they're lucky if they get a scan. So yeah, I was made sure to push the fact that I had the BRCA mutation. I did say to my mum, I hate the fact that she had cancer, but in a weird way, I said she kind of saved my life, because if she wasn't diagnosed the second time, she wouldn't have known about having the BRCA gene, then I wouldn't have found out about it. So, well, I just remember, luckily, because there was still doing precautions with COVID, not allowing people into the hospital with you. But luckily, they said my mum could come in with me. And I just kind of remember my surgeon saying, "I'm sorry to tell you, cancer, there is cancer being found in the cells and in the biopsy." It's still such a shock to hear, especially at only just turning 24, that you've got breast cancer. But yeah, I remember saying to my mum, "Am I going to lose my hair?" And then thinking, of course, I don't want to die. But yeah, I just remember we just both burst into tears. And then luckily my dad was waiting in the car park. One of the nurses actually went and brought him in. So luckily all three of us were able to be there together for it as well. And it definitely took a while for it to sink in. I remember going to my boyfriend straight after, and as soon as I saw him, I just collapsed in his arms and just cried. Obviously didn't sleep at all that night. But yeah, at that minute, as vain as it sounds, for me, it was a big part of it, my appearance, that my hair, I just got it after years and years. I just got it to a point I loved and I was happy with. And I remember thinking when my mum was diagnosed, one of the hardest parts, if I was ever diagnosed, would be losing my hair. Obviously, as it's growing back, luckily. But I did, obviously, there was other parts that I did think later on, but it was just that initial for me. I think as well, being told that I would most likely need, which I did end up having, a mastectomy or double mastectomy. And I think for me as well, though, that was also another large part of it, because I know it's not the be all and end all in life and stuff, but when I do eventually have kids, I had my heart set on breastfeeding, or at least attempting to, and then having that taken away from me as well. It was just the whole, so much of who I am, my femininity, being taken away from me. I think that's what I was struggling to come to terms with initially. So the first time, I think it was in 1998. I was 7 months old. She got the all clear. And then again, it was in 2019. She was diagnosed again, and she got the all clear for a second time, luckily. She'd had in 2020, I think she'd had a few kind of complications, and there was a few scares. So she was having more scans after, and it was only a few weeks before I was diagnosed that she got the full, right, you are definitely cancer free. Well, as I said, I hate the fact that she had to go through it, but because she also had a double mastectomy, we went through the exact same treatment plan. We had the same chemo regime and everything. So the only thing she didn't go through that I did was fertility preservation. So having someone there that understood and knew who I was feeling, someone so close, it did help. If I was feeling down or feeling ill, she knew how I felt, and where other people, they try to understand, but obviously they've never been through it, that's close to you, they can't. Having someone so close to me who knew, it really did help. So everything happened really quick, really. I was just sent in for all these tests, all the scans, to make sure that it was, well, because they thought that it might have spread to my nodes. I had another ultrasound and biopsy under my armpit to test for the nodes, which did come back positive for cancer in a few. I had breast MRI scan to make sure it hadn't spread to the other side, and a mammogram, which luckily it hadn't. And I had CT scan to make sure it hadn't spread anywhere else to my body. Because of my age, I'm classed as a young adult still. So I was put in contact to the Teenage Cancer Trust, and it was quite overwhelming because it was just within the next couple of weeks following my diagnosis. I just had all these people ringing me, telling me of what support's out there, which it was great to know about financial funding, talking to my teenage cancer nurse, talking to the Little Princess Trust about a wig. So it was great to know what was out there, but obviously just being told you've got cancer, then all these calls coming in, it was very, very overwhelming. But yeah, it all happened really quick. I had the scans in within a short period of time. I then went for my fertility preservation, and then it was straight into chemo. So yeah, being diagnosed October the 13th, so then starting chemo itself in December, there wasn't a week that something wasn't really happening. Luckily, because for my birthday, my boyfriend had bought me tickets to go and see a West End show in London. So, of course, when I was diagnosed, I thought, hang on, will I still be allowed to go to do this and go and see the show, go to London? Because it was the end of October, but my surgeon said, yes, when you've got in between the scans and everything, enjoy yourself, make the most of it, do whatever you can, because it's going to be one of the toughest years of your life. So I tried to fit in things like that, going on a final night out. It was all very emotional, knowing I won't be able to do anything like that for a while, but I'm glad I was able to try and fit things in while I could.